A couple of things that I want to cover before we go into the actual review. First of all, congratulations and thank you to everyone who continued from the beginning of this canto all the way up until this ending. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami has explained the different stages of devotional service. First one is Shraddha, some little faith, some inquiry. Well, what is this? Who is God? Why am I here? Next, association with devotees. Then accepting the process. It's called, Bhajana Kriya. Accepting the process, accepting a spiritual master, and performing the activities of devotional service regularly. The result of that is anartha nivriti, means the dirty things in the heart become cleansed. Then the next stage is called nishtha. It means fixed, it means steady. And we've seen over the years as we study these books by Srila Prabhupada, that steadiness is unique. We can almost filter different types of devotees, and those that are really steady, it's a wonderful devotional quality, and it's linked and weaved in with the next stage, which is ruchi, a taste, having a taste for it. We see people that are following this and doing this every single day, or month by month, chapter by chapter, the whole canto, have some taste. They appreciate it. They like to come to these Zooms. They like to read Shastra. They like to read other people's and share these topics. So thank you once again. Just wanted to appreciate everyone's steady determination and nishtha for that process. Secondly, I want to discuss a little bit about the Brahma Samhita study coming up next week, because we won't have a Zoom until after 3 lessons have been completed. This particular book, let me explain how I came to this design of why it's being included. In Vrindavan, the form of the Lord that manifests and is worshipped is Radha Krishna. In Mayapur, the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original personality of Godhead, not an avatar, manifests himself in a completely different form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in Jagannath Puri, the same personality of Godhead, Krishna, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam, manifests in a completely different form with different types of devotees, different places for pastimes, and so many different things. It's the same person manifesting different features. Srila Prabhupada gives the example, just like one person, when he's at home, one man he's known by his family as a particular type of person. When he goes to work, it's a little bit different. People see him differently. He interacts with them differently. When he goes to the club, or when he goes to play games, or when he associates with his friends out in society, they know him even a little bit differently. Same person with different features. Similarly, these topics about the creation of the universe, the advent of Lord Brahma from the navel of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. We've just completed the study of that pastime, that activity from the Srimad Bhagavatam. The same story, the same events are related in the Brahma Samhita by Brahma himself in a different kalpa. So while we're studying this book, I thought it would be an excellent sequel, but we're not going to study it in depth the way we studied the second canto. The way we've set it up, because we have some prior obligations later in the month, is this will only last until July 24th. That's 3 more weeks, 3 Saturdays. So there'll be 3 lessons per week, every week for the next 3 weeks. And those 9 lessons will comprise the book. There are podcasts for all the different lessons, so you can just simply listen. There are no forums or assignments for meditations and forums. What I've done is I've put the forum option for anyone who has a question or a comment they can use the forum topic in that lesson to ask a question or make a comment. So please keep that in mind. It's going to be kind of intense. It's three readings per week. But the thing is, this book is so deep and so wonderful that I hope everyone will give their attention to it and glean what it has to offer. It's the root of the Gaudiya Vaishnava, Brahma Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So if you have any questions or comments, you can also write to me. There'll be a topic at the top of the home page for the course with instructions and an overview. So let me click now over to our review, and we'll go into the complete review of the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Because this is a review and we have all the verses, we're going to go through all of the verses. We're going to keep a discussion until we're up to the 7th chapter. That will be the intermission for about 10 minutes. And whoever has a question or a comment to make, that will be the appropriate time to make it. This is such an important chapter and canto that we want to hear Prabhupada's words and the words of the Bhagavatam uninterrupted. And as I said, there will be a time for asking questions between the two parts and again at the end. So if you need to write down the question or the comments so that you don't forget, that's a good idea too.
I want to clarify that. Not all the verses of the second canto are included in this review.
Oh, right.
Okay. I was the one that made the slides. Yeah. And I tried to pick out the flow so that we can pick up what's being presented with some of the purports that kind of jumped out here.
Okay, so, even though it's very lengthy.
Yes.
So we want to just move along so that we can get the complete overview of the whole thing. And Pati, did you want to start first?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I've got chapter 1 was titled The First Step in God Realization. Now what I did here was I reverted back to the last chapter of the first canto, which is kind of like a setup for how the second canto began. You may remember that Maharaj Pariksit was cursed to die in 7 days. So Sukadeva Goswami came amongst this group of sages and sadhus who had come from all over the universe to see what would happen after he was cursed. And Maharaj Pariksit is speaking to Sukadeva Goswami. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 1:19, 37 through 39. You are the spiritual master of great saints and devotees. I am therefore begging you to show the way of perfection for all persons, and especially for one who is about to die. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me. O powerful Brahmin, it is said that you hardly stay in the house of men long enough to milk a cow. Okay, Priyaji, Sama?
Sorry, getting confused here. Okay, Vaishnavi, why don't you start reading, and then after Vaishnavi, Ian.
Okay. O descendant of King Bharat, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. The highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. Ante Narayana Smriti. O King Parikshit, mainly the topmost transcendentalists who are above the regulative principles and restrictions take pleasure in describing the glories of Lord.
Okay, Ian, can you read the next slide? Unmute yourself. Oh, you're unmuted. I don't hear you. Ian, we don't hear you. All right, get that together and you'll read next, okay? Tisha, do you want to read the next one? Do you want to read this while Ian's preparing?
Yes. At the end of Dwapara Yuga, I studied this great supplement of Vedic literature named Srimad Bhagavatam, which is equal to all the Vedas from my father, Srila Dvapayana Vyasadeva. O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence, yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. That very Srimad Bhagavatam I shall recite before you because you are the most sincere devotee of Lord Krishna. One who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation.
Okay, thank you. Ian, are you ready? I guess not yet. And Mr. Higgins, how about you? Nice to see you back with us.
Thank you, thank you. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna. Okay.
The fortunate King Pariksit, inquiring further, said, O Brahmana, please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be applied, and how the conception can be fixed so that the dirty things in a person's mind can be removed. Shukadeva Goswami answered, one should control the sitting posture, regulate the breathing process by the yogic pranayama, and thus control the mind and senses, and with intelligence apply the mind to the gross potencies of the Lord, called the Virat Rupa. This gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal material world as a whole is the personal body of the Absolute Truth, wherein the universal resultant past, present, and future of material time is experienced. The gigantic universal form of the personality of Godhead within the body of the universal shell, which is covered by sevenfold material elements, is the subject for the Virat conception.
Okay. Thank you. Next, Madhurya Leela. Oh, Ian, are you there? Can't hear you. Okay, Madhurya Leela.
Purport Bhagavatam 2.1.23. The materially absorbed mind of the conditioned soul does not allow him to understand the limit of the bodily conception of the self, and thus the yoga system for meditation, controlling the sitting posture and breathing process, and fixing the mind upon the Supreme, is prescribed in order to mold the character of the gross materialist. Unless such materialists are able to cleanse the materially absorbed mind, it is impossible for them to concentrate upon thoughts of transcendence. And to do so, one may fix one's mind on the gross material or external feature of the Lord. The different parts of the gigantic form of the Lord are described in the following verses. The materialistic men are very anxious to have some mystic powers as a result of such a controlling process. But the real purpose of yogic regulations is to eradicate the accumulated dirty things like lust, anger, avarice, and all of such material contaminations. If the mystic yogi is diverted by the accompanying feats of mystic yoga or control, then his mission of yogic success is a failure because the ultimate aim is God realization. He's therefore recommended to fix his mind, the gross materialistic mind, by a different conception, and thus realize the potency of the Lord. As soon as the potencies are understood to be instrumental manifestations of the transcendence, one automatically advances to the next step. and gradually the stage of full realization becomes possible for him.
One point here, as Srila Prabhupada pointed out, that in the following verses, he says the different parts of the gigantic form of the Lord are described in the following verses. I didn't include that big description of the Virat Rupa, but just to note, since we're just in overview format, the end of chapter 1 is that list of the Virat Rupa of the Lord. So thus ends chapter 1, the first step in God realization.
Thank you. Faye, could you read next?
Yes, Mataji. Chapter 2, The Lord in the Heart. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.2, verses 8 through 11. Others conceive of the personality of Godhead residing within the body region of the heart and measuring only 8 inches, with 4 hands carrying a lotus, a wheel of a chariot, a conch shell, and a club, respectively. His mouth expresses his happiness. His eyes spread like the petals of a lotus, and his garments, yellowish like the saffron of a kandamba flower, are bedecked with valuable jewels. His ornaments are all made of gold, set with jewels, and he wears a glowing headdress and earrings. His lotus feet are placed over the whorls of the lotus-like hearts of great mystics. On his chest is a Kastaba jewel engraved with a beautiful calf, and there are other jewels on his shoulders. His complete torso is garlanded with fresh flowers. He is well decorated with an ornamental wreath about his waist, and rings studded with valuable jewels on his fingers. His leglets, his bangles, his oiled hair curling with a bluish tint, and his beautiful smiling face are all very pleasing.
Thank you. Thank you. That's beautiful. Gopa Patni, would you like to read? What happened, Gopa? You there, Gopa? Okay, we're going to move on. Pritam, you read.
Yes, purport. The process of meditation recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam is not to fix one's attention on something impersonal or void. The meditation should concentrate on the person of the Supreme Godhead, either in his Virat Rupa, the gigantic universal form, or in his Sachit Ananda Vigraha, as described in the scriptures. There are authorized descriptions of Vishnu forms, and there are authorized representations of deities in the temples. Thus, one can practice meditating upon the deity, concentrating his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord, and gradually rising higher and higher up to his smiling face. The more one concentrates on the transcendental form of the Lord, either on the lotus feet, the calves, the thighs, or the chest, the more one becomes purified. In this verse, it is clearly stated, the more the intelligence becomes purified, which means the more one becomes detached from sense gratification. Our intelligence in the present conditioned state of life is impure due to being engaged in sense gratification. The result of meditation on the transcendental form of the Lord will be manifested by one's detachment from sense gratification. Therefore, the ultimate purpose of meditation is purification of one's intelligence.
Okay, Gopa, you want to read next, please?
Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam 2:15-18. O king, whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings, he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place, but should comfortably sit without being disturbed. And regulating the life air should control the senses by the mind. Thereafter, the yogi should merge his mind by his unalloyed intelligence into the living entity, and then merge the living entity into the super self. And by doing this, The fully satisfied living entity becomes situated in the supreme stage of satisfaction so that he ceases from all other activities. In that transcendental state of labdo pashanti, there is no supremacy of devastating time, which controls even the celestial demigods who are empowered to rule over the mundane creatures. And what to speak of the demigods themselves? Nor is there the mode of material goodness, nor passion, nor ignorance, nor even the false ego, nor the material causal ocean, nor the material nature. The transcendentalists desire to avoid everything godless, for they know that supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, a pure devotee who is in absolute harmony with the Lord does not create perplexities, but worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment, taking them into his heart.
So,
Thank you.
okay, this is the description of the result of meditation on the Lord in the heart. The first chapter we read about the first step in God realization, the Virat Rupa. And then this stage here is when one completely transcends material nature, nor the material nature, nor the causal ocean. So one comes to a state of labdo pashanti, completely transcendental. So Sukadev Goswami is presenting this step by step. First, the Virat Rupa, the first step in God realization, then the Lord in the heart, and then the next chapter.
And we'll ask Nanda to read. And Ian, if you're ready at any time, please let me know. Nandaji?
Chapter 3, Pure Devotional Service, the Change in Heart. 231. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, as you have inquired from me as to the duty of the intelligent man who is on the threshold of death, so I have answered you. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desires, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the personality of Godhead. All the different kinds of worshipers of the multi-demigods can attain the highest perfectional benediction, which is spontaneous attraction, unflinchingly fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead only by the association of the pure devotee of the Lord. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment, and being transcendental is approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted?
Thank you. Narayan, you're next. Can you read?
Yes. Saunaka said, the son of Vyasadeva, Sri Sukadeva Goswami, was a highly learned sage and was able to describe things in a poetic manner. What did Maharaj Pariksit again inquire from him after hearing all that he had said? O learned Sutta Goswami, please continue to explain such topics to us, because we are all eager to hear. Besides that, topics which result in the discussion of the Lord Hari should certainly be discussed in the assembly of devotees. The person who has not at any time received the dust of the feet of the Lord's pure devotee upon his head is certainly a dead body. And the person who has never experienced the aroma of the tulsi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a dead body, although breathing. Certainly that heart is steel framed, which in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, does not change when ecstasy takes place. Tears fill the eyes and the hairs stand on end. O Sutta Goswami, your words are pleasing to our minds. Please, therefore, explain this to us as it was spoken by the great devotee Sutta Sukadev Goswami, who is very expert in transcendental knowledge and who spoke to Maharaj Pariksit upon being asked.
So chapter 3, pure devotional service, the change in heart, more or less is these various people speaking about the conversation between Maharaj Pariksit and Sukadev Goswami. Because remember, at the end of chapter 2, Sukadev ended it by saying, "Thus I've answered your question." Then Sutta Goswami and Shaunika are having this conversation about those people who are detached from material nature and very much attracted to hearing spiritual topics. So that's the change in heart, that rather than being so attached and attracted by material world and what goes on in it, transcendentalists actually become attracted, the change in heart, they become attracted to hearing that which is beyond the pastimes of the Lord, beyond this material world. I also want to point out that when you're reading, note that the chapters, the texts skip, because this is a review. So when we have an opportunity to read, please read these texts also to bring everyone's attention, to let them know that we've switched topics here. It's not just a straight linear description of the chapter. They're just reviews.
Okay, Manvantar, would you like to continue with chapter 4? Unmute. Unmute, sweetie. Manvantar. There you go. I can't hear you still. You're muted.
Please move on to someone else.
Okay. How about Paula? Manvantar, get that together and then you can read after her. Paula, you're new to the group and I'd like to welcome you to read. Okay. Okay. How about Ekadasi? Ekadasi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you. Could you read, please? And
Yes.
okay, Manvantara, after her, could you see if you can read? Thank you. Go on, Ekadasi.
Okay, 1 second. Chapter 4, the process of creation. Chapter 2, second canto, chapter 4, text 5 through 10. Maharaj Pariksit said, "O learned Brahmana, you know everything because you are without material contamination. Therefore, whatever you have spoken to me appears perfectly right. Your speeches are gradually destroying the darkness of my ignorance, for you are narrating the topics of the Lord. I beg to know from you how the personality of Godhead, by his personal energies, creates these phenomenal universes as they are, which is inconceivable even to the great demigods. Kindly describe how the Supreme Lord, who is all-powerful, engages his different energies and different expansions in maintaining and again winding up the phenomenal world in the sporting spirit of a player. O learned Brahmana, the transcendental activities of the Lord are all wonderful, and they appear inconceivable because even great endeavors by many learned scholars have still proved insufficient for understanding them. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is one. Whether he alone acts with the modes of material nature, or simultaneously expands in many forms, or expands consecutively to direct the modes of nature. Kindly clear up all these doubtful inquiries, because you are not only vastly learned, but are also a great devotee of the Lord, and are therefore as good as the personality of Godhead.
Akadasi, next time you read, please turn off your
Yes,
video because your bandwidth is being affected somehow.
Okay,
Oh, sorry. Okay.
thank you. Manvantara, are you ready to continue? Can you read Manvantara, the next one, Pati? Technical difficulty today. All right, you're unmuted, Manvantara. See if you can read. I don't know if she can hear. Can you hear me, Manvantara? I don't think she can hear me. Okay, Vaishnavi, would you continue?
Yes. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4:22 through 25. May the Lord who in the beginning of creation amplified the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart and inspired him with full knowledge of creation and his own self, and who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahma, be pleased with me. May the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who enlivens the materially created bodies of the elements by lying down within the universe, and who is in his Purusha incarnation, causes the living being to be subjected to the 16 divisions of material modes, which are his generator, be pleased to decorate my statements. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of Vasudeva, who compiled the Vedic scriptures. The pure devotees drink up the nectarian transcendental knowledge dropping from the lotus-like mouth of the Lord. My dear king, Brahma, the firstborn, on being questioned by Narada, exactly apprised him on this subject as it had been directly spoken by the Lord to his own son, who was impregnated with Vedic knowledge from his very birth.
So chapter 4 comprised of Maharaj Pariksit asking Sukadev Goswami about the process of creation, how the Lord does that. And then at the end of the chapter, this is Sukadev Goswami offering his prayers, may the Lord be pleased with me, before he speaks. Now he'll go on to chapter 5. And at the end of the chapter, we note here that he refers to Lord Brahma and his being questioned by Narada on these same topics. So at this point in the canto, Sukadev Goswami will segue to a conversation between Lord Brahma and Narada.
Okay, now Manvantara, are you set up to read? You have to speak louder somehow or another. I can't hear. Oh, you're muted, darling. You're muted. Still muted. All right. Technical difficulty all the way around here. Ian, are you ready now?
Maybe someone can chat. I'm not good with chat. Somebody can chat to Manvantara and let her know that we're not hearing her.
I did.
Hare
Oh,
Krishna,
Ian's there. Oh,
can you hear me
yes,
now?
very good. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes,
Hare
go
Bol.
on.
Chapter 5, the cause of all causes. 2.5, point 1 to 3. Sri Narada Muni asked Brahmaji, O chief amongst the demigods, O firstborn living entity, I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Please tell me that transcendental knowledge, which specifically directs one to the truth of the individual soul and the supersoul. My dear Father, please describe factually the symptoms of this manifest world. What is its background? How is it created? How is it conserved? And under whose control is all this being done? My dear Father, all this is known to you scientifically because whatever was created in the past, whatever will be created in the future, or whatever is being created at present, as well as everything within the universe is within your grip, just like a walnut.
Okay. Are you set to read, Manvantar? You have to unmute. Can you unmute? No. Oh, no. Does anyone hear her or it's just me?
No,
No,
she's unable to unmute.
You're unable to unmute. Okay. So we're gonna have to go on with Mr. Higgins.
My dear Father, what is the source of your knowledge? Under whose protection are you standing? And under whom are you working? What is your real position? Do you alone create all entities with material elements by your personal energy? As the spider very easily creates the network of its cobweb and manifests its power of creation without being defeated by others, so also you yourself, by employment of your self-sufficient energy, create without any other's help. Whatever we can understand by the nomenclature, characteristics, and features of a particular thing, superior, inferior, or equal, eternal, or temporary, is not created from any source other than that of your Lordship, thou so great. Yet we are moved to wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than you when we think of your great austerities in perfect discipline, although your good self is so powerful in the matter of creation. My dear Father, you know everything, and you are the controller of all. Therefore, may all that I have inquired from you be kindly instructed to me, so that I may be able to understand it as your student.
Okay, thank you. Tisha, do you want to read next?
Manvantara is open.
Oh, you're open, Manvantar. You're open now. Okay.
Okay, so
I still
no,
can't.
she her Wi-Fi is not probably connected. Anyway, that's okay.
Maybe turn off the picture, the video, and see if you can. I'm not really a technician.
Her external mic is not working or is not
Your
connected
external
somehow.
mic is not. I see. All right. Well, we're going to go on with Tisha.
Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam 2, chapter 5, verse 9 through 12. Lord Brahma said, My dear boy Narada, being merciful to all, including me, you have asked all these questions because I have been inspired to see into the prowess of the Almighty Personality of Godhead. Whatever you have spoken about me is not false, because unless and until one is aware of the personality of Godhead, who is the ultimate truth beyond me, one is sure to be illusioned by observing my powerful activities. I create after the Lord's creation by his personal effulgence, known as the Brahmajyoti. Just as when the sun manifests its fire, the moon, the firmament, the influential planets, and the twinkling stars also manifest their brightness. I offer my obeisances and meditate upon Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, whose invincible potency influences them. The less intelligent class of men to call me the Supreme Controller.
Okay. Faye, can you read that? Oh, Madhurya Leela and then Faye.
Bhagavatam 2.5, 20 to 23. O Brahmana Narada, the superseer, the transcendent Lord, is beyond the perception of the material senses of the living entities. Because of the above mentioned three modes of nature, but he is the controller of everyone, including me. The Lord, who is the controller of all energies, thus creates by his own potency, eternal time, the fate of all living entities, and their particular nature for which they were created, and he again merges them independently. After the incarnation of the first Purusha, Karnadakshaya Vishnu, the Mahatattva, or the principles of material creation, take place, and then time is manifested. And in course of time, the three qualities appear. Nature means the three qualities appearance. They transform into activities. Material activities are caused by the Mahatattvas being agitated. At first, there is transformation of the mode of goodness and passion, and later on, due to the mode of ignorance, matter, its knowledge, and different activities of material knowledge come into play.
Okay, thank you. We're going on with Faye. Can you read next, please?
Yes, Mataji. O Narada, the best of all transcendentalists, the forms of the body cannot take place as long as these created parts, namely the elements, senses, minds, and modes of nature, are not assembled. Thus, when all these became assembled by the force of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this universe certainly came into being by accepting both the primary and secondary causes of creation. Thus, all the universes remained thousands of eons within the water, the causal ocean, and the Lord of living beings, entering into each of them, caused them to be fully animated. The Lord Mahavishnu, although lying in the causal ocean, came out of it, dividing himself as Hiranya Garbha. He entered into each universe and assumed the Virat Rupa with thousands of legs, arms, mouths, heads, etc.
Unmute, Pati, unmute.
So in chapter 5, it was called The Cause of All Causes. And we see in this wonderful painting what's being described. In the beginning, Narada asked his father, you pervade the entire universe. You've created everything that we see. Are you the supreme controller? Because I see that you also underwent austerities. So Brahma, who knows these details of creation, is describing all these features. And he's explaining that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental, and he expands himself as Mahavishnu. Then again, as we just read here, Mahavishnu expands himself into each universe as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So the cause of all causes is being described here as Krishna. Brahma is being very clear about it. Now we'll go on to the next chapter, which is 6. It's called Purusha Shukta, confirmed. And as you remember during our studies, Purusha Shukta is a prayer offered by the demigods to the Supreme Lord when they want his assistance. So Purusha Shukta is glorification of the Supreme, and it's confirmed in this next chapter.
Okay, thank you. Gopapatni, could you start this chapter for us?
All right. Chapter 6, Purushukta confirmed. Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 6th chapter, 19 through 20. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be known as the supreme reservoir of all material opulences by the 1/4 of his energy, in which all living entities exist. Deathlessness, fearlessness, and freedom from the anxieties of old age and disease exist in the kingdom of God, which is beyond the 3 higher planetary systems and beyond the material coverings. The spiritual world, which consists of 3/4 of the Lord's energy, is situated beyond this material world, and it is especially meant for those who will never be reborn. Others who are attached to family life and who do not strictly follow celibacy vows must live within the 3 material worlds.
Thank you.
Just want to make one note here, because as everybody starts to read the Brahma Samhita this week, they'll come across different language. This book is not written by Srila Prabhupada or translated into English by him or edited by his contemporary followers. This concept that 3/4 of the energy of the Lord is the spiritual world and 1/4 is the material world. In the Brahma Samhita, you'll read the uniquadrantal and triquadrantal. So when you come across those words, this is what it refers to: triquadrantal and uniquadrantal. It's 3/4 and 1/4. I just wanted to bring that up because it's confusing if you don't know what they mean.
Okay, Gopa, go on with the next slide, please.
Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 6th Chapter, 21 through 23. By his energies, the all-pervading personality of Godhead is thus comprehensively the master in the activities of controlling and in devotional service. He is the ultimate master of both nescience and factual knowledge of all situations. From that personality of Godhead, all the universal globes and the universal form with all material elements, qualities, and senses are generated. Yet he is aloof from such material manifestations, like the sun, which is separate from its rays and heat. When I was born from the abdominal lotus flower of the Lord Mahavishnu, the great person, I had no ingredients for sacrificial performances except the bodily limbs of the great personality of Godhead.
Thank you. Pritam, you want to continue?
Yes. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, text 27 through 30. Thus I had to arrange all these necessary ingredients and paraphernalia of sacrifice from the personal bodily parts of the personality of Godhead. By invocation of the demigods' names, the ultimate goal, Vishnu, was gradually attained, and thus compensation and ultimate offering were complete. And thus I created the ingredients and paraphernalia for offering sacrifice out of the parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, and I performed the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord. My dear son, thereafter your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, performed the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities. Thereafter, the Manus, the fathers of mankind, the great sages, the forefathers, the learned scholars, the Daityas, and mankind performed sacrifices meant to please the Supreme Lord.
Thank you. Nanda, are you there? Could you read the next one?
Yes. Srimad Bhagavatam 2, 6th chapter, 33 to 35. My dear son, whatever you have inquired from me, I have thus explained unto you. And you must know for certain that whatever there is, either as cause or as effect, both in the material and spiritual worlds, is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. O Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, with great zeal. Whatever I say has never proved to have been false, nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter. Although I am known as the great Brahma, perfect in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, and although I have undergone all austerities and am, excuse me, and expert in mystic powers and self-realization. And although I am recognized as such by the great forefathers of the living entities who offer me respectful obeisances, still I cannot understand him, the Lord, the very source of my birth. 6th chapter, text 46 now. O Narada, I shall now state one after the other the transcendental incarnations of the Lord known as Leela avatars. Hearing of their activities counteracts all foul matters accumulated in the ear. These pastimes are pleasing to hear and are to be relished. Therefore, they are in my heart.
Okay, now we've concluded up until chapter 7, the review up until chapter 7. So let's just take a moment to see if anyone has anything to add, any comments or questions. Nanda, can you say something? Do you have something that you want to share or ask?
Well, what just caught my attention was in the last slide that I just read was how Brahma said, never have my senses been attracted to matter. But there's been a few instances where Brahma had a little bit of difficulty when he couldn't understand Krishna as the Supreme Lord. And so what's the explanation of that? I guess that's not matter though, huh? It wasn't attached to matter.
Anyone have the answer for that? Pati?
He says, look, on 33 and 35, the last two sentences, nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter.
That's the line that I was looking at. Nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter. That it is considered degraded to be attached to matter. And the verse before that, for material attachment to family life. This material world is for those who are attached to family life. So it's being, those two statements really did it for me. Anyone else have something to say or share or ask? If
Most of the
not,
time,
Yeah,
oh, who's that? Madhuya?
go ahead, Dhruva Maharaj.
I was just going to say most of the acharyas, when they discuss anything between Brahma and the Supreme Lord, it's generally put into the category of similar to Arjuna's bewilderment. It was all a plan so that something would come from it. It's
Right, because
it's actually,
self-realized.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Madhuya?
Earlier, we read that, and we discussed this before, so just wanted to go over it a little bit. To control the mind, they had recommended the process of, pranayama and so on and so forth, all those difficult things. And that way we can control our mind and fix our intelligence. But for us, for devotees, just chanting, even though our mind may not be focused, difficult to focus the mind, we just continue to do that, right? Or should we? I know some people they follow that kind of thing, that they do physical breathing exercises or other things to help them.
Well,
focus.
there were two things mentioned that are recommended actually in this age, which is I think Prabhupada said in a purport that we just read it, that hearing the pastimes of the Lord, and that is the way for salvation. That is the way for self-realization for this age. Even Arjuna said it's impossible to control the mind. It's more difficult than controlling the wind. So this is the process for self-realization, to hear the pastimes of the Lord and to chant the holy name. We are Kali Yuga people. We are very fallen, and this is the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. He has given us the process to detach us from family life so that we won't be contaminated by our attachment to matter. Just hear the pastimes of the Lord and and continue to chant. This doesn't mean that we're going to feel purified. Oh, I'm so purified because I'm chanting Hare Krishna and hearing the pastimes of the Lord. A devotee is always in a humble position thinking that he's not purified, but he continues doing it because he develops a taste. That's my 2 cents. Anyone else have something to add? Pati, Nanda, Gopa, Ekadasi, anyone?
Exactly. Srila Prabhupada, we were just listening to a lecture the last couple of days that Srila Prabhupada was explaining that process of yoga meditation, the Ashtanga yoga process, is not practical in this age. It cannot be done. So those that are practicing it are headed towards futile endeavor. It's not possible. The modes of nature, the universal progress with the modes of nature and the ingredients of nature mixing in such a way that the actual process was brought. We'll read. We're coming up now to scheduled incarnations with specific functions. So what is the specific function of the Kali Yuga avatar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? He advented yada yadahi dharmasya glane bhavati bharata bhutanama dharmasya taratmadam sajamyaham, to establish the dharma for the age. And the dharma for this age is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani Vedanam, especially chanting the holy names.
Yeah, and even more important is chanting the holy names than the other processes of devotional service. So does anyone else have something to, would anyone else like to say something or ask a question at this time? Because if not, we'll just go on. Manvantara, are you able to speak? Is your mic fixed, or we're still working on that? It looks like it's not going to happen because I can't. Now is another chance. We need to know mine. That's it. We need to know hand language. Okay, so we'll go on now. And Ekadasi, would you read? And then we have a new member, Divya, if you would like to read after Ekadasi.
Yes, okay. Chapter 7, Scheduled Incarnations with Specific Functions.
Okay, for this, rather than go through all the different descriptions, texts 1 through 38 describe those various incarnations with brief narrations of their pastimes. Okay, Ekadasi.
Okay. Text 39. At the beginning of creation, there are penance, myself, Brahma, and the Prajapatis, the great sages who generate. Then, during the Prajapatis, the great sages who generate. Then, during the maintenance of the creation, there are Lord Vishnu, the demigods with controlling powers, and the kings of different planets. But at the end, there is irreligion, and then Lord Shiva and the atheists, full of anger, etc. All of them are different representative manifestations of the energy of the supreme power, the Lord. Purport. The material world is created by the energy of the Lord, which is manifested in the beginning of the creation by the penance of Brahmaji, the first living being in the creation. And then there are the 9 Prajapatis known as great sages. In the stage when the creation is maintained, there are devotional service to Lord Vishnu, or factual religion, the different demigods, and the kings of different planets who maintain the world. At last, when the creation is preparing to wind up, there is first the principle of irreligion, then Lord Shiva along with the atheists full of anger. But all of them are but different manifestations of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahadev, Shiva, are different incarnations of the different modes of material nature. Vishnu is the Lord of the mode of goodness, Brahma is the Lord of the mode of passion, and Shiva is the Lord of the mode of ignorance. Ultimately, the material creation is but a temporary manifestation meant to give the chance of liberation to the conditioned souls who are entrapped in the material world. And one who develops the mode of goodness under the protection of Lord Vishnu has the greatest chance of being liberated by following the Vaishnava principles and thus being promoted to the kingdom of God, no more to return to this miserable material world.
I don't want to skip too far ahead. Thank you, Akadasi. Just to show you how I designed this, we went with scheduled incarnations. Texts 1 through 38 were Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Nrsimha, Vamana, Ram, Parasaram, Ram, all the different incarnations as we see here. I didn't want to, we kind of skipped over that a little quickly. So Brahma is describing, first of all, he described how Mahavishnu expands to Garbhodaksha Vishnu, how each universe is expanded into senses and ingredients and planets. Then he described how the Lord enters into the universe and performs various pastimes with specific functions. And all these were described. And then as Akadasi just read, even Vishnu, Mahadev, and Brahma are also incarnations. So this is kind of where we're at in the narration.
Okay. I noticed the picture in that picture that you had just shown. It looked like Jesus was there. Is that Jesus down on the bottom? That's wonderful, because he certainly was an empowered incarnation.
And who's that on the left side holding the book?
Yeah, maybe Muhammad.
Yeah.
Muhammad. That's
Okay.
just like a speculation, but the other
Interesting.
But I mean, we have to understand that other traditions also, who are seeking God consciousness, there are prophets and empowered souls coming to, in all, if they're in the animal kingdom, that's all throughout the universe to help the living beings to go back to Godhead. Different modes of nature people are involved in. It's wonderful. This is a platform upon which the whole world can unite. And that would be a wonderful thing. All right.
Why is Lord Chaitanya at the at the bottom? Isn't it Swayam Rupa Krishna? He should be at the top.
What?
Why is Lord Chaitanya at the shown at the bottom of the picture?
Recent. I think it's in recent. It's recent.
Recent incarnation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Recent.
Yeah, if you look at this, it kind of starts way back here, Varaha, the four Kumaras, Narayana, Rishi, Narada, and then here Muhammad, Buddha, Lord Chaitanya, Jesus, Kalki.
Okay.
Yeah. Lord Chaitanya stands on the top, the bottom, and all around.
Yeah.
Okay, so is Divya here? Would you like to read Divya Rukmini? I don't know if she's okay. All right. Well, let's start again with Vaishnavi.
Okay. Neither I nor all the sages born before you know fully the omnipotent personality of Godhead. So, what can others who are born after us know about him? Even the first incarnation of the Lord, namely Sesha, has not been able to reach the limit of such knowledge, although he is describing the qualities of the Lord with 1,000 faces. Purport. The omnipotent personality of Godhead has three primary potencies, namely the internal, external, and marginal potencies, with unlimited expansions of these three energies. As such, the expansions of his potencies can never be calculated by anyone, because even the personality of Godhead, God himself, as the incarnation of Sesha, cannot estimate the potencies, although he has been describing them continuously with his 1,000 faces.
Thank you. Why don't you read the next one too, Vaishnavi?
Srimad Bhagavatam 2.750 through 53. My dear son, I have now explained in brief the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is creator of the manifested worlds. Without him, Hari, the Lord, there are no other causes of the phenomenal and noumenal existences. Sorry, it's not noumenal. Noumenal existences. O Narada, this science of God, Srimad Bhagavatam, was spoken to me in summary by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it was spoken as the accumulation of his diverse potencies. Please expand this science yourself. Please describe the science of Godhead with determination and in a manner by which it will be quite possible for the human being to develop transcendental devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Hari, the super soul of every living being and the summum bonum source of all energies. The Lord's activities in association with his different energies should be described, appreciated, and heard in accordance with the teachings of the Supreme Lord. If this is done regularly with devotion and respect, one is sure to get out of the illusory energy of the Lord.
Thank you. And we were discussing this before. These instructions are the chapter shloki. Ian, would you read this purport? Are you still able to communicate? Yeah, there you are.
Okay. Purport Srimad Bhagavatam 2.7.53. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the science of God, the first 9 cantos prepare the ground for hearing the 10th canto. This will be further explained in the last chapter of this canto. In the 3rd canto, it will be more explicit. A pure devotee of the Lord, therefore, must begin reading or hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from the very beginning, and not from the 10th canto. We have several times been requested by some so-called devotees to take up the 10th canto immediately, but we have refrained from such an action because we wish to present Srimad Bhagavatam as the science of Godhead and not as a sensuous understanding for the conditioned souls. This is forbidden by such authorities as Sri Brahmaji. By reading and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam as a scientific presentation, the conditioned souls will gradually be promoted to the higher status of transcendental knowledge after being freed from the illusory energy based on sense enjoyment.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Higgins, are you still there? Would you like to read the
Still
next
here.
one?
Okay.
Okie dokie.
Just want to point out that
no.
that was the Purusha Shukta confirmed. It was the chapter describing how the Lord and specific and scheduled incarnations with specific functions. So Brahma has described how the universe evolved, how the Lord is the cause of all causes, how he enters into the universe and performs specific functions, which led Maharaj Pariksit to ask more questions.
Okay, Mr. Higgins.
All right. Chapter 8, questions by King Pariksit. Oh, Srimad Bhagavatam 2.8.7. O learned Brahmana, the transcendental spirit soul is different from the material body. Does he acquire the body accidentally or by some cause? Would you kindly explain this, for it is known to you? Purport. In the process of devotional service, the first step is to take shelter of the spiritual master and then inquire from the spiritual master all about the process. This inquiry is essential for immunity to all kinds of offenses on the path of devotional service. Even if one is fixed in devotional service, like Maharaja Pariksit, he must still inquire from the realized spiritual master all about this. In other words, the spiritual master must also be well versed and learned so that he may be able to answer all these inquiries from the devotees. Thus, one who is not well versed in the authorized scriptures and not able to answer all such relevant inquiries should not pose as a spiritual master for the matter of material gain. It is illegal to become a spiritual master if one is unable to deliver the disciple.
Thank you. And of course, we were discussing illegal. according to God's law, illegal. Tisha, could you read the next 2 slides?
Yes, Mataji. Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam 2, chapter 8, verse 21 through 24. Please explain unto me how the living beings are generated, how they are maintained, and how they are annihilated. Tell me also of the advantages and disadvantages of discharging devotional service unto the Lord. What are the Vedic rituals and injunctions of the supplementary Vedic rites? And what are the procedures of religion, economic development, and sense satisfaction? Please also explain how, merged in the body of the Lord, living beings are created, and how the infidels appear in the world. Also, please explain how the unconditioned living entities exist. The independent personality of Godhead enjoys his pastimes by his internal potency, and at the time of annihilation gives them up to the external potency, and he remains a witness to it all. O great sage, representative of the Lord, kindly satisfy my inquisitiveness in all that I have inquired from you and all that I may not have inquired from you from the very beginning of my questionings. Since I am a soul surrendered unto you, please impart full knowledge in this connection. Srimad Bhagavatam 2, chapter 8, verse 27 through 29. Sutta Goswami said, thus, Sukadeva Goswami, being invited by Maharaj Parikshit to speak on topics of the Lord Sri Krishna with the devotees, was very much pleased. He began to reply to the inquiries of Maharaj Parikshit by saying that the science of the personality of Godhead was spoken first by the Lord himself to Brahma when he was first born. Srimad Bhagavatam is the supplementary Vedic literature, and it is just in pursuance of the Vedas. He also prepared himself to reply to all that King Parikshit had inquired from him. Maharaj Parikshit was the best in the dynasty of the Pandus, and thus he was able to ask the right questions from the right person.
Okay, Madhurya Leela, could you start chapter 9 for us, please?
Answers by citing the Lord's version. 2:9, 5-8. Lord Brahma, the first spiritual. 2:9, 5-8. Lord Brahma, the first spiritual master, supreme in the universe, could not trace out the source of his lotus seat. And while thinking of creating the material world, he could not understand the proper direction for such creative work, nor could he find out the process for such creation. Thus, while thus engaged in thinking in the water, Brahmaji heard twice from nearby 2 syllables joined together. One of the syllables was taken from the 16th and the other from the 21st of the Sparsha alphabet, and both joined become the wealth of the renounced order of life. When he heard the sound, he tried to find the speaker, searching on all sides, but when he was unable to find anyone besides himself, he thought it wise to sit down on his lotus seat firmly and give his attention to the execution of penance as he was instructed. Lord Brahma underwent penances for 1,000 years by the calculation of the demigods. He heard this transcendental vibration from the sky, and he accepted it as divine. Thus he controlled his mind and senses, and the penances he executed were a great lesson for the living entities. Thus he is known as the greatest of all ascetics.
Okay, continue on, Madhurya, with these last 2 verses.
Text 9-10. The personality Godhead, being thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, was pleased to manifest his personal abode by Kunta, the supreme planet above all others. This transcendental abode of the Lord is adored by all self-realized persons, freed from all kinds of miseries and fear of illusory existence. In that personal abode of the Lord, the material modes of ignorance and passion do not prevail, nor is there any of their influence and goodness. There is no predominance of the influence of time, so what to speak of the illusory external energy? It cannot enter that region. Without discrimination, both the demigods and the demons worship the Lord as devotees.
Thank you. Faye, do you want to continue?
At this point, just to, rather than go into all the details, because I knew it would be time consuming, but there's beautiful descriptions of the Vaikuntha. Brahma is actually seeing this within his ecstatic vision of meditation. He's sitting on the lotus flower, and Krishna has revealed to him this spiritual sky, which he is describing in texts 11 through 17. Okay, Faye.
Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.20 through 24. The beautiful personality of Godhead addressed Lord Brahma. O Brahma, impregnated with the Vedas, I am very much pleased with your long accumulated penance with the desire for creation. Hardly am I pleased with the pseudo-mystics. I wish you good luck. O Brahma, you may ask from me, the giver of all benediction, all that you may desire. You may know that the ultimate benediction, as the result of all penances, is to see me by realization.
Wow. Go on, Faye.
Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.25 through 30. Lord Brahma said, O personality of Godhead, you are situated in every living entity's heart as the supreme director, and therefore you are aware of all endeavors by your superior intelligence, without any hindrances whatsoever. In spite of that, my Lord, I am praying to you to kindly fulfill my desire. May I please be informed how, in spite of your transcendental form, you assume the mundane form, although you have no such form at all. And please inform me how you, by your own self, manifest different energies for annihilation, generation, acceptance, and maintenance by combination and permutation. O Master of all energies, please tell me philosophically all about them. You play like a spider that covers itself by its own energy, and your determination is infallible. Please tell me, so that I may be taught in the matter of instruction of the personality of Godhead, and may thus act instrumentally to generate living entities without being conditioned by such activities. O my Lord, the unborn, you have shaken hands with me just as a friend does with a friend, as of equal in position. I shall be engaged in the creation of different types of living entities, and I shall be occupied in your service. I shall have no perturbation, but I pray that all this may not give rise to pride, as if I were the supreme.
Very powerful last line. Gopapatni, could you read the next couple of slides? Gopaji, good.
Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, 9th chapter, 31 through 33. The personality of Godhead said, knowledge about me as described in the scriptures is very confidential, and it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained by me. You may take it up carefully. All of me, namely my actual eternal form and my transcendental existence, color, qualities, and activities, let all be awakened within you by factual realization out of my causeless mercy. Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, 9th chapter, 33 through 36. Chatur Shloki. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time, I am outside of everything. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly.
Thank you, Gopa. The most potent seed verses in the Bhagavatam. Pritam, can you continue for us?
Yes. Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 9, text 38 through 40. Sukdev Goswami said to Maharaj Parikshit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, after being seen in his transcendental form, instructing Brahmaji, the leader of the living entities, disappeared. On the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, which is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of devotees, Brahma, with folded hands, began to recreate the universe full with living entities as it was previously. Thus, once upon a time, the forefather of living entities and the father of religiousness, Lord Brahma, situated himself in acts of regulative principles, desiring self-interest for the welfare of all living entities.
Go on, Pritam.
Okay. 42 through 46. Narada very much pleased his father and desired to know all about the energies of Vishnu, the master of all energies, for Narada was the greatest of all sages and greatest of all devotees, O king. The great sage Narada also inquired in detail from his father Brahma, the great-grandfather of all the universe, after seeing him well satisfied. Thereupon the supplementary Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, which was described by the personality of Godhead and which contains 10 characteristics, was told with satisfaction by the father Brahma to his son Narada. In succession, O king, the great sage Narada instructed Srimad Bhagavatam unto the unlimitedly powerful Vyasadeva, who meditated in devotional service upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, on the bank of the river Saraswati. O king, your questions as to how the universe became manifested from the gigantic form of the Personality of Godhead, as well as other questions, I shall answer in detail by explanation of the 4 verses already mentioned.
Thank you. Nanda, would you start the 10th chapter?
Yes, chapter 10. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Canto 2, chapter 10, verses 1 to 3. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 10 divisions of statements regarding the following: the creation of the universe, subcreation, planetary systems, protection by the Lord, the creative impetus, the change of Manus, the science of God, returning home back to Godhead, liberation, and the summum bonum. To isolate the transcendence of the summum bonum, the symptoms of the rest are described sometimes by Vedic inference, sometimes by direct explanation, and sometimes by summary explanations given by the great sages. The elementary creations of 16 items of matter, namely the 5 elements, fire, water, land, air, and sky, sound, form, taste, smell, touch, and the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and mind is known as sarga, whereas subsequently resultant interaction of the modes of material nature is called Visarga. The 2.10.5. The science of God describes the incarnations of the personality of Godhead and his different activities, together with the activities of his great devotees. And an excerpt from the purport. During the course of the existence of the cosmic manifestation, the chronology of history is created, recording the activities of the living entities. People in general have a tendency to learn the history and narrations of different men and times, but due to lack of knowledge in the science of Godhead, they are not apt to study the history of the incarnations of the personality of Godhead. It should always be remembered that the material creation is created for the salvation of the conditioned souls. The merciful Lord, out of his causeless mercy, descends to various planets in the material world and acts for the salvation of the conditioned souls. That makes the history and narrations worth reading. Srimad Bhagavatam offers such transcendental topics of the Lord in relationship with great devotees. Therefore, the topics of the devotees and the Lord are to be given respectful oral reception.
There's just one more little one. Why don't you continue for us, Nanda?
Okay, and this is the 16th verse of the 10th chapter. As the followers of a king follow their Lord, similarly, when the total energy is in motion, all other living entities move. And when the total energy stops endeavoring, all other living entities stop sensual activities. An excerpt from the purport. The individual living entities are completely dependent on the total energy of the Supreme Purusha. No one has independent existence, just as no electric lamp has independent effulgence. Each and every electrical instrument depends fully on the total powerhouse. I love this description. This really stuck out to me when I read this. I'm going to start again. Each and every electrical instrument depends fully on the total powerhouse. The total powerhouse depends on the greater reservoir of water for generating electricity. Water depends on the clouds. The clouds depends on the sun. The sun depends on creation. And the creation depends on the movement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes.
Wow, powerful. Thank you.
Just
do you want to say something?
Yeah, just one note here that text 17 through 41, we read this rather recently, so I didn't include it. It describes the development of various features within the universe. You'll remember when the Supreme Lord desired when the sages desired to hear, the ears were formed. When the Supreme desired to taste, the tongue was developed. So it's a basic overview of the description of all the different things that we see and experience in this universe in the form of senses and objects of senses.
Thank you. Narayan, would you like to continue?
Yes. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, verse 41 to 43. According to the different modes of material nature, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of darkness, there are different living creatures who are known as demigods, human beings, and hellish living entities. O King, even a particular mode of nature, being mixed with the other two, is divided into three, and thus each kind of living creature is influenced by the other modes and acquires its habits also. He, the personality of Godhead, as the maintainer of all in the universe, appears in different incarnations after establishing the creation, and thus he reclaims all kinds of conditioned souls amongst the humans, the non-humans, and the demigods. Thereafter, at the end of the millennium, the Lord himself, in the form of Rudra, the destroyer, will annihilate the complete creation as the wind displaces the clouds.
Thank you. There's just one more slide, and let's end off with the Kadasi so everybody has had a nice time to read. Akadasi, you with us? If she's not, then Narayan, you're on.
I'm here. Sorry. I
Oh,
thought I
she's
was
there.
reading
She's
it.
there. She's there. Okay, thank you, Akadasi.
Yeah. 45
Finish it.
through, okay, 45 through 47. There is no direct engineering by the Lord for the creation and destruction of the material world. What is described in the Vedas about his direct interference is simply to counteract the idea that material nature is the creator. This process of creation and annihilation described in summary herein is the regulative principle during the duration of Brahma's one day. It is also the regulative principle in the creation of Mahat, in which the material nature is dispersed. O king, I shall in due course explain the measurement of time in its gross and subtle features with the specific symptoms of each. But for the present, let me explain unto you the Padma Kalpa.
So because we didn't have a Zoom and a review of this particular topic, this is important right here. The process of creation and annihilation described in summary herein is the regulative principle during the duration of Brahma's one day. It is also the regulative principle in the creation of the entire Mahat. So there are, at the end of each of So
Divya, could you mute, please? Because we're having this discussion. Mute for a moment, please, Divya.
Okay, so just pointing out that the process of creation, maintenance, and annihilation is the same in micro experiences and in macro experiences. It's the same that we experience in our day-to-day or even lifetimes. Then also in Brahma's one day, there are creations and annihilations. And then the whole Mahatattva, the whole thing goes into Mahavishnu when he inhales. The process described is the same throughout all of them. That's the main point that's being summarized by Sukadev.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of the second canto. And what an accomplishment and what a profound canto for us to study. Does anyone have anything to add to this before we end the second canto? Does anyone have a question or realization that they'd like to share?
I have a question.
Do you?
I'm still not completely clear on what came first or the order of things in terms of the Vedas, the Bhagavatam, and the Chaturshloki.
Well, the Vedas, as far as I understand, the Vedas came first. The
Yes, I think we posted that from the third canto. It describes that Brahma was impregnated with transcendental knowledge of the Vedas. Srimad Bhagavatam is a later manifestation. All this knowledge is eternal, by the way. It's not like a linear topics. It's just how it manifests. In other words, it's always there, but how it manifests is that the Vedas were there first. Then in Kali Yuga, Vyasadeva wrote down the four. He took the one Veda. It's described that prior to Kali Yuga, there was only one Veda. He, in order to understand it more easily, he broke it down into different categories and made the four Vedas. Then he took that and broke that down further into the Upanishads, then took those down and broke it down into the Puranas. And then after compiling that, did the Vedanta Sutra. Even after he had done all that work of breaking it down into different details, Narada instructed him. He was still feeling, we read this in the first canto, he was still feeling uneasy and unfulfilled. And Narada came and said, even though you've broken down all this knowledge and its various components, you still haven't really focused on the Supreme Lord and his incarnations and the activities that he performs as when he comes to this world and in the spiritual world. So thus,
Can I interrupt one thing right at that point? Because that's exactly that right there. You haven't described the activities of the Lord, and this is all being a setup for the process of self-realization for the Kali Yuga, because that is the way that the conditioned souls in the Kali Yuga become self-realized through that process of hearing the activities of the Lord. So I thought it just fit in right there for what you were explaining.
Does that make it more clear, Madhurya Leela?
Okay, so the Bhagavatam, okay, I understand. So that means the Vedas were already existing before the Chaturshloki were spoken to Brahma?
Yes. Everything's always existing, but yes, Brahma was realized of the Vedas. We'll read that in the third canto. I think I reposted it last week.
So the Vedas were already there, and then when on the lotus after the penances, the Lord spoke the Chaturshloki to him.
Another thing that we'll learn as we go into Brahma Samhita is that these are not even the same Brahma or the same Kalpa or the same creation. When something's eternal and it manifests, then the Vedas don't really present things in that chronological order. So the Brahma Samhita that we'll read is also the revelation of Brahma. And in that we'll read, it kind of jumped out at me on the page and helped me re-understand. Brahma is a post. It's not just one single person. There's one person in the post at the time, but it's a post, like a president or a king. And a different person takes that post. And it's actually described in Brahma Samhita that at the end of a kalpa, when Brahma, if the Brahma of that kalpa is liberated, then another Brahma comes at the time of the creation of the next day of Brahma. So when we're reading Brahma Samhita or we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam and we're reading these different descriptions of the Lord's revelation to Brahma, it might even be two different Brahmas in 2 different days or 2 different creations, because everything is eternal. But for us, in the Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya, because Lord Chaitanya found this text of this kalpa's Brahma, and that text written in the 5th chapter, therefore that particular information of that particular Brahma and that particular relationship with the Lord and revelations that was brought up to him and revealed to him is most significant to us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else have something to say? I'd like to thank you all for your nice association and determination to get through the 2nd canto, which sometimes is a great challenge. But I think that we've made it accessible by this association, and it was certainly a wonderful thing to have done together. That's the best thing that human beings can do, is discuss the pastimes of the Lord. Thank you. So if no one has anything else to say, thank you to my dear good husband for getting this all together. It's not an easy thing to do. Hare Krishna.
Thank you
dear
so
friend,
much.
Hari Bol, everybody.
Thank you
Hare
much.
Krishna. Hope to see you in our Brahma Samhita.
Yeah, let's do Brahma Samhita. So talk about a challenge. That's going to be really good.
Remember, if you have questions when you're reading this, we're not going to have a forum back and forth, but if you write the questions, if you come across topics that are unclear in the text, copy and paste it into the forums. And then on Saturday, when we do the Zooms, we'll try to go over them and clear them up and discuss them.
Thank you all. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpataruga.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees. Thank you. Hare Krishna.